We're here with Chris Myers, one of the icons of New Orleans television sports and an icon in the world of sports in everything he does now. And Chris, just my goodness, so glad to have you here talking with us today. And how you enjoying New Orleans?
Oh,
so far?
I love it. I love coming back. I ate at the Vegas Steakhouse the other night, brought some guests in. It's just good to be back. And Super Bowl's here. I mean, having worked here, I did that. You know, that Super Bowl where the Bears beat the Patriots, 85, right back when I was here in the 80s. I'm very proud of the city that they've been able to withstand a lot to have another Super Bowl and in the Superdome. It's always good being back home.
Let's talk about your history here in New Orleans. At WWL-TV, you had an idea, a 30-minute show after the Sunday 10 o'clock news, and it was the forerunner of everything that has followed since. Talk about the show and how you gave it a name.
Well, proud that, WWL Channel 4, I worked there. Jim Henderson was a sports director, and I was on weekends in the 80s before the Saints had any success. They had never had a winning season. But fourth down on 4, we created, I was always fighting for more time with highlights and to talk Saints football on the local news. And so I went to some salespeople at WWL, and I said, hey, if you can get some sales. They said, well, we don't want to give up the ratings. The Saints aren't winning. This is right after the Aints. I was like, yeah, but people, they will win at some point, and people love talking about, and we can add high school and college, whatever we need to do, but make it a Saints show. It'll be a big show. They gave me the opportunity. They got the sponsors. We got a half-hour show to follow our 10 o'clock news on Sunday night, and I'm proud to say, because I was here 6 years and ran through it, and the show built up. The Saints finally won with Jim Mora coming to town, and the Super Bowl with Sean Payton, a lot of history, but the show's still on the air, and I'm proud of that because it showed that there is great fan loyalty, and there are viewers here that support a team. Whether they win or lose, they're with their team, and that means a lot to me. Every time I come back, I look for that, and I actually have a book out called That Deserves a Wow that's about my career with ESPN and FOX, but I mentioned that as a seminal moment to having an idea to show that fans, as broadcasters, we have to understand what fans want. Sometimes programmers have to listen too.
How did you know back then what the fans wanted that would garner the ratings, such big ratings for a 30-minute sports show after the Sunday night news?
Because I would go to the game, and even if they were wearing the bags or they were angry, they were there, and they were talking about the Saints, and they were talking about who should be in and who should be out, who should be the next coach, why are the Saints doing this, how are they doing that, and I saw the passion there. And if somebody's passionate, even if they kind of don't like you, they'll still show up. And some people were questioning me kind of fitting in because I didn't grow up here, but when I came here early in my career, I grew up as a broadcaster here, and WWL, Mike Early, they gave me the chance to do things in sports that other people did not, so I could move to ESPN and to Fox Sports. But I think that's what drove it. I'm like, eventually, whatever the team does, these people are those that are diehards that are hanging around, they're going to be ahead of the parade when they do start winning, and that's exactly what the case is. And I know it's a down dip right now, but they'll be back, and ownership will eventually get what they need to make the Saints a winner again.
Looking back at your career in New Orleans, maybe one or two of the most memorable or most fun things for you, Chris Myers?
Wow, there were a lot of them. In my book, I mentioned Black Cat LeCobe, a guy who worked the fairgrounds, and he wasn't a big star, but I did a feature about him, and he represented so much of the New Orleans vibe, not necessarily football, but a guy who was content with life, who lived kind of an interesting life, who was to himself, and I remember I did the story, and people liked it. I think they reran it when he passed away, and I thought it was important to tell other people about that, because there were a lot of great people. In the short time, the best compliment I could have, Ken, was that I spent here, and when I left and moved on, people were happy for me, and they said it's great to see one of our own move on. And I'm like, thank you, because this is not an easy place to, if you're not from here, to be accepted. So that was one thing. But the Saints, the big thing was the Saints breaking through, and finally with Jim Mora having a winning season. He had a lot to do, by the way, and the story's in the book. I was dating, she went to UNO and Ben Franklin at the time, and Jim Mora, we were out dinner, I was doing his radio show on WWL radio, and so he said, well, when are you going to get married? And I said, we've talked, but I said, I'll tell you what, if the Saints make the playoffs, and they never had in history, I said, a true story, if the Saints make the playoffs, my wife, Susan, at the time she was just my girl, I said, we'll get married. And we made the playoffs the next year. He sent a registered letter to our home saying it's official now. Myers has to marry Susan here, the New Orleans girl. So there's a lot of seminal personal moments, but Saints football breaking through, finally having a winning season, then to the playoffs, and then being able to present on Fox when the Saints won the championship game here in the Dome against Brett Favre and the Vikings. Again, kind of a local Southeast guy, and to present that trophy with the Benson family and, of course, Sean Payton and Drew Brees, those were special moments, and they went on to win the Super Bowl. That'll always be with me. There'll always be a slice of that in my heart.
If you had to look into the camera and say anything to the people of New Orleans and are reminiscing about your time here, what would it be?
Well, no, I think I would say thank you, because not only to the people I worked with, but the viewers, they were very supportive of me and accepted me. Yeah, and they also kind of helped steer me into stories and reporting that mattered to them. And I hope Fourth Down on 4 continues on for decades, and that the Saints get back to winning.
Last question would be the game.
Yes.
We're here for the big Super Bowl. How do you see it? How do you pick it?
Well, a lot of people are chiefed out, but that's success. They're really a nice bunch of guys. Mahomes, Andy Reid, when you hang. I've called some Eagle games this year, and Saquon Barkley has brought a good guy approach to Philadelphia a little more. So I think the Eagles can win. Probably have to run the ball, not just with Barkley, but with Jalen Hurts to win the game and put a lot of pressure on. They got to get to Mahomes, make him uncomfortable. But in the end, I'm going to go with Reid and Mahomes in a close game. They've won 17 in a row, one-score games. If it's that one score again, I think Kansas City pulls it out. Great.